The evening rush had just begun when the young waitress stepped into the restaurant, tying her apron as she greeted the kitchen staff with a tired but warm smile. She had barely slept the night before, but like always, she pushed those worries aside. The restaurant was her second home, and even on her hardest days, she tried to treat each customer with kindness. It was the only thing she felt she had complete control over. The place was already filling up. People talked loudly, cutlery clattered against plates, and waiters rushed around trying to keep up with the orders. She took a deep breath, picked up her small notepad, and moved toward her first table of the evening. She didn't know that tonight. Something unusual was about to happen, something that would slowly begin to change her life. Man entered quietly through the glass door. He looked older than she first guessed, dressed in a simple but expensive-looking suit. He didn't speak to anyone as he walked in. His eyes were low and his steps slow. Something about him made him seem distant, almost like he was carrying a heavy weight. The manager approached him right away, recognizing him instantly. Not many people could tell, but the waitress didn't pay much attention to wealth or status. She just saw a tired man who needed a seat. He was guided to her section, and she approached him gently. "Good evening. May I bring you something to drink?" she asked with a soft tone. He looked up briefly, gave a small nod, and murmured, "Just water." "Please." His voice was quiet, rough, as if he hadn't spoken much all day. She smiled, even though he didn't look at her again. She didn't see rudeness in his silence. She saw pain and exhaustion. It was a look she understood well. When she returned with his water, he was staring at his phone, but didn't seem to be reading anything. His mind seemed somewhere far away. She placed the glass gently in front of him. "Take your time," she said. He didn't respond, but she wasn't offended. Many customers came in with heavy hearts. She understood that sometimes people had silent battles she knew nothing about. He ordered a simple meal, nothing fancy, nothing expensive. She served him with the same care she gave everyone, maybe even a little more because of how lost he looked. She checked on him twice, making sure not to disturb him too much. She noticed he barely touched his food, but she didn't comment. Everyone handled their feelings differently. When he finished, he waved her over quietly. She brought the bill, placed it softly on the table, and stepped back with a gentle nod. The billionaire, though she had no idea who he truly was, pulled out his wallet slowly. He paid in cash, folded the receipt, and placed something beneath it. Then he stood up with the same heavy steps he came in with and walked toward the door without looking back. She approached the table to clean it, expecting nothing unusual. But when she lifted the bill, she froze for a moment. There, placed neatly under the glass, was a single $1 bill. $1. Her fingers paused in midair. She stared at the small note, not because she wanted more money, but because it felt so small compared to how much effort she had put into serving him. She remembered the warmth she had tried to bring to his table, the quiet care in her tone, the patience in her footsteps. $1 felt like a whisper of disregard. Behind her, 2 coworkers noticed her standing still. One of them whispered to the other, $1? Seriously? Maybe she messed up the order. Another waiter added jokingly, maybe he didn't like her service. She didn't say anything. She turned the dollar over in her hand slowly, her mind racing for a moment. She was used to low tips, but $1 was different. Still, she took a quiet breath and let the comments fade behind her. Maybe he's going through something, she said softly, speaking more to herself than to anyone else. She folded the dollar carefully, almost respectfully, as if it wasn't an insult, but a small, complicated message she didn't fully understand yet. Then she tucked it safely into her apron pocket. Her coworkers rolled their eyes, unable to understand why she wasn't angry. But she simply smiled, wiped the table, and moved to her next customer. Kindness didn't cost her anything, and she refused to let bitterness take root in her heart, even on days like this. What she didn't know was that a security camera had captured her entire reaction. How she stayed calm, how she spoke kindly, how she handled the moment with quiet grace. It wasn't a dramatic reaction. It wasn't loud or visible, but it was real, and it said something powerful about her. Later that same night, after the restaurant closed, the manager received a message from someone unexpected. The billionaire had contacted him and asked for the camera footage of the table where he had sat. The manager, confused, complied. He didn't understand why such a wealthy man would care about a simple restaurant moment, but the billionaire watched it carefully, noticing everything: her gentle reaction, her lack of anger, her composed smile, and the way she brushed off the whispers around her. Her kindness didn't just stand out. It surprised him. He had been testing something. He had left small tips for weeks at different places, observing how people reacted when he gave less than expected. Some had insulted him. Some had complained loudly. Some even chased him outside, demanding more. But this waitress, she was different. She treated him the same way before and after the tip. She didn't change her expression. She didn't judge. She didn't mock. And for the first time in months, he felt something he hadn't felt in a long time: curiosity. The next day, she returned to work, unaware that her ordinary evening had caught someone's attention. She continued her shift as usual, moving between tables with gentle patience. She laughed with a little kid who kept dropping his spoon, listened patiently to an elderly woman who repeated the same stories, and helped a coworker carry heavy trays without being asked. She never acted like she was doing anything special. To her, these were small things people owed each other as human beings. It was simple. It was natural. And it came from the heart. But hidden among the customers that day was the same man from the night before. Except this time, he wore a simpler outfit: no expensive suit, no polished shoes. He blended in easily with the crowd, watching quietly from a corner. He paid attention to everything she did: how she smiled despite being tired, how she listened to customers with genuine interest, how she stayed patient even when things got chaotic. He saw something rare: kindness without expectation. And as he observed her, something in him began to shift. The heavy cloud around him didn't disappear, but for the first time in days, he felt a small break in it. The waitress didn't know he was watching. She didn't know her reaction to a single dollar was becoming the beginning of something bigger. She didn't know that her gentle nature, something she never considered special, was quietly opening a door she could never have imagined. All she knew was that she had done her job, kept her composure, and tried to see the good even in a confusing moment. But fate, in its own quiet way, had already started working, and the story that began with a $1 tip was only beginning its first chapter. The next morning, the waitress woke up before her alarm, as she often did, with a quiet sense of determination. Life had been hard for her, but she had learned long ago to carry on no matter how heavy the weight on her shoulders felt. She prepared herself for her long day, making breakfast for her younger sibling before heading out to work. She did everything with a soft hum, small movements filled with care, even in the simplest tasks. When she arrived at the restaurant, it was already buzzing with early customers. She tied her apron and greeted the staff with a polite smile. She thought about last night for only a moment. The $1 tip had stung, yes, but she didn't dwell on it. It had been a small moment, and she had chosen to let it pass. She had bigger worries: bills, school fees, and making sure her sibling had everything they needed. She walked toward the tables, taking orders, serving food, and checking on her customers. In the middle of her shift, she noticed a man sitting quietly in the corner, sipping his coffee. She didn't recognize him immediately, but there was something familiar about his quiet presence. His clothes were simple, nothing extravagant, and his gaze was distant as he watched the staff move around. Something inside her told her to approach him with the same care she gave every customer. "Good morning," she said softly. "Can I get you anything else?" He looked up and smiled faintly, a small curve that almost seemed to carry relief. "No, thank you," he said quietly. "I'm just watching." She nodded politely and moved on to another table, her steps calm. She did not assume anything about him. To her, he was just another person in need of a little kindness, even if he did not ask for it. Unbeknownst to her, the man was not just an ordinary customer. He was the same billionaire from the night before. He had returned to see her again, not to test her further, but because he had been deeply moved by her reaction. Most people would have been angry, upset, or even rude after such a tip. But she had shown calm patience and compassion. It had caught his attention in a way no amount of money or business could. He watched silently as she helped an elderly man who struggled with his tray, gently steadied a small child who had dropped a plate, and offered a kind word to a colleague who looked exhausted. She did not know she was being observed, but everything she did reflected the strength of her character. Each act of kindness, no matter how small, added to an image that was becoming clearer to him. She was a person who lived with grace even under pressure. Later that day, he spoke to the manager. "Who is she?" he asked, his voice low and serious. The manager, still surprised by the previous night's request for footage, hesitated. "She's been with us for a few years. She's one of the best waitresses here. Never complains, always polite. Works hard even when things get tough at home. She's rare." The billionaire nodded, a small smile on his lips. He wanted to know more. She was not just good at her job. She was extraordinary in a quiet, unnoticed way. As the day continued, the waitress moved through her duties with her usual calmness. She had no idea her life was about to shift. She noticed a man leave the restaurant just as she was finishing up a table, but she did not recognize him at first. He returned later, walking directly toward her, and for the first time, she felt a pang of nervousness. There was something in his eyes that made her heart beat faster. "Excuse me," he said softly. "May I speak with you for a moment?" She blinked, a little surprised. She followed him to a quieter corner of the restaurant, her hands folded nervously in front of her. He looked at her with an intensity that was neither threatening nor harsh, but full of curiosity and something she couldn't quite name. "I want to apologize for last night," he said. "The tip I left, it was not fair. I wanted to see how people would react, but I never expected anyone to respond the way you did." She tilted her head, unsure how to respond. I just tried to see the best in people," she said quietly. "Even when it's hard." He nodded, clearly impressed. "Most people would have been angry. Some would have yelled or complained. But you stayed calm. You treated me the same before and after. That is something rare." Her heart skipped a beat, but she kept her voice steady. "I do what I can. I don't know what people are going through, so I try not to judge. It's easier that way." He studied her for a long moment. There was a softness to her that was uncommon. In his life of wealth, decisions, and constant scrutiny, he had rarely encountered someone so genuinely kind without any motive. It was almost like a mirror reflecting something he had forgotten existed. "Why do you do it?" he asked finally. "Why do you care so much for others when life is so hard?" She shrugged, her eyes looking down at her hands. "Because someone once cared for me when I needed it, and it made a difference. I want to do the same, even if it's just a little. Kindness doesn't cost much, but it matters." He smiled faintly, almost as if he could feel her words settle inside him. "I see that," he said, "and I want you to know, it has not gone unnoticed." For the first time, the waitress realized that the man in front of her was not ordinary. There was a presence about him, a quiet authority, and a calm that was different from anyone she had ever met. But still, she did not act differently. She remained grounded, humble, and polite. He left shortly after, leaving her with a sense of curiosity that she couldn't shake. Something about him had stirred a feeling deep inside her, though she did not understand it fully. She continued her work, serving customers, helping colleagues, and keeping her usual cheerful spirit. Meanwhile, the billionaire reflected on what he had seen. It was not just her reaction to $1. It was her daily life, the way she treated people, the way she worked, the way she carried herself despite her own struggles. He realized that there was a rare kind of strength in her, one that could not be bought or taught. He decided he needed to know more about her. He wanted to understand what drove her, what dreams she had, and how someone with so little, yet so much heart, could maintain such grace under pressure. For days, he returned to the restaurant, sometimes in disguise, observing her quietly. He watched her interact with customers, how she laughed softly with children, listened patiently to the elderly, and offered help to her colleagues without a second thought. She had no idea. To her, it was just another day of doing what she believed was right. To him, it was a revelation. He saw something that wealth, power, and influence could never create pure human kindness. One afternoon, as the lunch rush slowed, he approached her manager again. "I want to meet her. I want to know her story," he said. The manager, puzzled, nodded. "You won't be disappointed. She's worked hard her whole life and never asks for anything. She deserves everything she gets, but she doesn't know how to ask for it." That evening, as the restaurant closed, he finally asked to speak with her again. She approached, curious but cautious. "I want to know your story," he said, his voice soft. "Not the part you show to the world, but the part only you know. Your struggles, your dreams, the things that make you who you are." She hesitated. No one had ever asked her that before, not with genuine interest. Most people wanted to judge, to criticize, or to help in a way that made them feel better. But he was different. His eyes were calm, attentive, and sincere, and so she began to speak. She told him about her life, the hardships, the responsibilities, and the small victories she had celebrated quietly. She spoke about her younger sibling, the bills, and the dreams she held close to her heart. She did not hide the pain, but neither did she dwell on it. She spoke with honesty and grace. He listened intently, realizing that he had underestimated the strength of ordinary people. Here was someone living a life of quiet struggle, yet carrying herself with dignity and compassion. He could not help but admire her. By the time she finished, he had made a decision. He wanted to help her, not with money given without meaning, but with guidance and opportunity. She was someone who deserved a chance, someone who could do great things if given the right support, but he would not rush her. He would watch, he would learn, and he would wait for the right moment to step forward. He had seen her strength, and he knew that rushing would ruin what was so naturally beautiful about her character. She returned home that night, exhausted but quietly happy. She did not know that her life had already begun to shift. The events of last night, the quiet observations, and her patient kindness had set something in motion that could not be undone. And so, she continued, day by day, serving with her gentle spirit, unknowingly inspiring someone who could change her life forever. The billionaire had begun a journey, and she had no idea that her simple acts of kindness were the reason for it. The next morning, the waitress woke with the same routine. She prepared breakfast, packed lunch for her younger sibling, and left for work. The sun had barely risen, but the city was already alive with people rushing to their jobs, talking on phones, and chasing the next appointment. Life felt heavy sometimes, but she carried her responsibilities with quiet strength. She knew the world would not slow down for her struggles, so she had learned to move with it. As she entered the restaurant, the familiar buzz of activity greeted her. The smell of fresh coffee, sizzling grills, and baked bread filled the air. She tied her apron, greeted the staff, and started her shift with calm determination. Today, she had no idea that her life was on the verge of an extraordinary turn. The billionaire had returned again, this time without any of the previous tension of testing or observing from afar. He wanted to know more about the woman who had reacted to a single dollar with such grace. He wanted to see her as she truly was, without the filter of a tip or the expectation of a reward. He watched from a corner table, quietly, as she moved gracefully between customers. She smiled at an elderly couple, helped a young child retrieve a fallen spoon, and carried a tray for a tired colleague without being asked. Her energy was unassuming but powerful, radiating warmth and calm even in the chaos of the busy restaurant. After observing her for a while, he requested a meeting with the manager. He wanted to know more about her background. The manager, still surprised by the previous day's events, spoke with admiration. "She's remarkable," the manager said. "She's worked here for years, always putting others first. Never complains, never asks for anything beyond what she earns. She's the kind of person who inspires others without realizing it." The billionaire nodded thoughtfully. He wanted to meet her directly, not as someone testing or judging, but as someone who genuinely wanted to understand her. He arranged for a private conversation after her shift ended, making sure she would feel comfortable. When her shift finally slowed and the last few customers left, he approached her. She noticed him walking toward her and felt a mixture of curiosity and caution. He smiled softly and said, "May I speak with you for a moment?" She nodded, a little nervous but composed. She followed him to a quiet corner of the restaurant. He looked at her with a calm intensity, not intimidating, but commanding attention. "I wanted to apologize again for last night," he began. "The tip I left, it was not fair. I wanted to see how people would react, but I never expected anyone to respond the way you did." She remained calm, choosing her words carefully. "I just try to see the best in people," she said, "even when it's hard." He studied her closely. Most people would have been angry. Some would have complained. Some would have even tried to embarrass me. But you stayed calm. You treated me the same before and after. That is rare." Her eyes softened, but she did not seek praise. "I believe everyone is dealing with something we can't see," she said quietly. "We all have our battles. I try not to make them heavier with my own anger or disappointment." He listened, fascinated by her perspective. In his life of power and influence, he had rarely encountered someone with such quiet wisdom. Her strength did not shout. It whispered, but it was no less powerful. He realized that her character, her patience, and her kindness were qualities that could not be taught. They were inherent. Shaped by life's struggles and triumphs, he leaned back, reflecting on the courage it took to live like that. "Do you know how many people would have lost their patience?" he asked. They would have reacted angrily, yelled, or even quit their jobs out of frustration. But you stayed true to yourself. She shrugged gently. "I've had my share of struggles. I've learned that reacting with anger doesn't help anyone. Sometimes you just have to do the right thing quietly, without expecting recognition." Her words struck him deeply. For someone used to the constant noise of ambition, wealth, and influence, her calm sincerity was refreshing. He felt a sense of admiration he hadn't experienced in years. He paused, considering his next words carefully. "I want to know your story," he said finally. "Not the part the world sees, not the part you show at work, but the part that is only yours. The dreams, the struggles, the things that make you who you are." She hesitated, unsure if anyone had ever asked her that question with genuine interest. Most people wanted to judge or offer pity, but his eyes held only curiosity and respect. Slowly, she began to speak. She told him about her childhood, the struggles she had faced, and the responsibility she carried for her younger sibling. She spoke of long nights balancing school, work, and household chores. She shared her fears, her hopes, and the small victories that had kept her moving forward. She did not hide the pain, but she also did not dwell on it. Her voice carried a quiet resilience, an honesty that was both compelling and humbling. He listened without interruption, absorbing every word. He realized that she had been shaping her character through experiences that most people would have found overwhelming. Yet, she had emerged not bitter, but kind. Not broken, but strong. Not selfish, but compassionate. When she finished, there was a silence that held more meaning than any words could. He looked at her and said, "You have a rare gift. Not many people can live through hardship and still see the good in others. I want to help you not with charity, but with guidance and opportunity. I see potential in you, and I believe you can do great things." Her heart raced, but she kept her composure. "I appreciate your words, but I don't need charity," she said softly. "I just do what I can with what I have." He nodded, smiling gently. "I understand. This is not charity. This is an opportunity. I want to mentor you, teach you things I have learned, and help you reach your dreams if you are willing to try." She considered his offer carefully. It was overwhelming, almost unbelievable. She had never imagined someone of his stature would take such a personal interest in her. Yet, she felt the sincerity in his words. It was not condescending or patronizing. It was a genuine desire to support her growth. After a long pause, she finally said, "I would like that, but I need to make sure I can handle it. I don't want to rely on someone else. I want to earn it." He smiled, respecting her determination. "You will earn it. I will guide you, but everything will come from your effort, not my wealth. You deserve a chance, and I believe in your ability to make the most of it." And so, their journey began. She started meeting him after her shifts, learning about financial planning, business strategy, and ways to achieve her dreams. Each session was a mix of guidance and practical advice, but he also encouraged her to maintain her integrity, kindness, and humility. He reminded her that success was not only measured in money or status, but in the positive impact she could make on others. Meanwhile, her life outside these lessons continued with the same quiet struggles. She still worked long hours, supported her sibling, and managed the household. But now, there was a new light in her path, a possibility she had never dared to dream of before. She began to see that her efforts, patience, and kindness were not unnoticed. Someone saw her, truly saw her, and valued what she brought to the world. Over the weeks, she grew more confident. She applied the lessons she learned in small ways, improving her work, planning for the future, and thinking about the possibilities she could create. Her natural kindness remained unchanged, and in fact, it seemed even stronger, fueled by the validation that her character mattered. The billionaire continued to watch and guide, but he never imposed. He respected her pace, her decisions, and her dignity. To him, this was not about control, it was about nurturing potential. He admired her humility, her resilience, and her unwavering moral compass. And through it all, she remained unaware of how deeply she had affected him. The moments he had spent observing her, the grace she had shown with $1, and the consistent kindness she displayed had opened something in his life he hadn't felt in years. He began to see the world differently, realizing that the value of a person could not be measured by wealth or power, but by their actions, their heart, and their character. One evening, after a particularly long day, she walked home quietly. reflecting on the events of the past weeks. She had met someone extraordinary, someone who believed in her and offered guidance, but she still felt grounded. She knew that nothing was guaranteed and that she had to continue working hard, but the sense of possibility warmed her heart. She began to dream carefully of a life where her kindness and effort could grow into something tangible, where she could create opportunities not only for herself, but for others. Little did she know, this was only the beginning. The path ahead was filled with challenges, learning, and growth. But she had already shown what she was capable of: the strength to remain kind when the world offered insult, the patience to endure hardship without bitterness, and the courage to embrace opportunity when it came. And that courage, quiet as it was about to change her life forever. Days turned into weeks, and the waitress continued her routine, balancing work, home responsibilities, and her small moments of rest. Life was still hard, but now she had something to hold on to, a sense of possibility that had been absent before. Every day she worked at the restaurant, she moved through her duties with the same calm patience. But there was a quiet confidence beginning to show in her eyes. The billionaire continued to meet with her after her shifts. Their sessions were different from the average mentorship. He did not hand her money, nor did he give her commands. Instead, he asked questions, listened, and provided guidance tailored to her dreams and strengths. He encouraged her to see the opportunities around her, to think strategically, and to plan realistically for her future. He also reminded her of the importance of maintaining her character, her kindness, patience, and integrity, which he insisted were far more valuable than money or fame. At first, she felt nervous about opening up fully. She had spent years being cautious, never sharing her true thoughts or dreams with anyone, fearing judgment or disappointment. But with him, she felt safe. There was no judgment, no expectation beyond her own effort. He asked her about her goals, her ideas, and even the small, everyday ways she wanted to improve her life. Every conversation planted seeds of possibility in her mind. One evening, after a particularly long session, she hesitated before leaving. "I don't want to rely on you," she said softly. "I don't want it to feel like charity." He shook his head, smiling gently. "This is not charity. Think of it as guidance, mentorship. I am giving you tools, not gifts. You still have to build your own path. The effort must be yours, or it won't mean anything." She nodded, feeling a mix of relief and determination. For the first time, she realized that opportunity was not something handed out, it was something she had to earn. And she was ready to do that. Over the next few weeks, she began making small changes in her life. She started saving money more deliberately, keeping a journal of her ideas, and planning for a future she had only dreamed about in quiet moments. She found herself thinking about her younger sibling, imagining a life where they could both be secure and happy. These thoughts brought her hope, but also a sense of responsibility. She knew that dreams alone were not enough. She had to act. Her work at the restaurant continued, but she approached it with renewed energy. She noticed the difference in herself as she interacted with customers. Her patience remained, but there was a spark of confidence now, a subtle light in her eyes that did not go unnoticed by those around her. Colleagues started noticing her calm leadership, her quiet problem-solving, and her ability to lift the spirits of those she worked with. She had not changed who she was, but she had begun to understand her own worth. Meanwhile, the billionaire observed her progress. He was impressed not only by her hard work, but by her humility and her consistent kindness. Most people, he knew, would have let a change in fortune or opportunity alter their character. But she remained grounded, never letting pride or greed cloud her judgment. One afternoon, he brought up an idea during their meeting. "Have you ever thought about starting your own business?" he asked. She looked at him, startled. I've dreamed about it, yes. but I never thought it was possible. I don't have the money, the connections, or the experience." "Experience can be gained," he said calmly. "Connections can be built. Money, in this case, can be arranged with proper planning. What matters is your vision and determination. I can guide you, but you will make it happen. You must own it from start to finish." She hesitated, thinking about the risks, the failures, and the long hours it would require. But as she looked into his eyes, she saw confidence and trust in her abilities. For the first time, she felt someone believed in her enough to invest not just money, but time and guidance. And that belief gave her courage. They began working on a plan. The billionaire taught her financial management, marketing basics, and operational planning. He encouraged her to think about her values, how she wanted her business to feel to customers, and how she could make a positive impact on the community. He reminded her that a business built on honesty, integrity, and care would always thrive more than one built solely on profit. She absorbed every lesson, sometimes staying up late at night to jot down notes, calculate budgets, and brainstorm ideas. She started small, envisioning a cafe where people could feel welcome, relaxed, and cared for. She thought about the menu, the ambience, and the customer experience. Every detail mattered to her because she understood the importance of human connection. As they worked together, he challenged her gently but firmly. He pushed her to think beyond limitations, to question assumptions, and to find solutions rather than excuses. She struggled at times, but she also grew stronger. She realized that growth was not comfortable. It was challenging, sometimes exhausting, but ultimately rewarding. Outside their sessions, her life continued with its usual challenges. She still managed her household, supported her sibling, and worked long hours at the restaurant. But now, she felt a sense of balance, a sense that her efforts were not just surviving, they were building something meaningful. Her dreams no longer felt distant or impossible. They felt achievable, step by step. One evening, as she and the billionaire reviewed her progress, he paused and looked at her thoughtfully. "You've come a long way," he said, "not just in knowledge or skills, but in confidence and clarity. You see possibilities where before there were only obstacles. That is true growth." She smiled quietly, feeling both pride and humility. "I couldn't have done it without your guidance," she said. He shook his head. "I didn't do it." "You did? I only helped you see what was already there. The strength, patience, and determination were always yours. You just needed someone to reflect it back to you." The next weeks were filled with preparation. She finalized her plans, calculated budgets, and researched suppliers. She even found a small space for the cafe, modest but cozy, perfect for the type of business she wanted to create. She imagined the people who would come, the smiles she could share, and the community she could build. Each day brought her closer to turning her dream into reality. Finally, the day came when she was ready to open the cafe. She stood in the small space, looking around at the clean counters, the carefully arranged tables, and the warm lighting. It was her vision come to life, a tangible result of her hard work, her patience, and the guidance she had received. The billionaire arrived quietly, sitting in the back, observing without interrupting. She was nervous but excited, her hands trembling slightly as she arranged the final touches. Customers began to arrive, curious about the new place. She greeted them with the same warmth and kindness she had always shown, now mixed with a quiet pride in what she had achieved. The first day was a success. People enjoyed the atmosphere, the food, and most importantly, the feeling of care that permeated the cafe. She received compliments, not just for the quality of the service and the food, but for the welcoming, genuine energy she brought into the space. Every smile and word of appreciation reinforced what she had known all along. Kindness and hard work could create magic in the world. at the end of the day. She found the billionaire in the back, watching quietly. She approached him, feeling both gratitude and humility. "Thank you," she said softly, "for everything. For believing in me, for guiding me, and for helping me see what I could do." He smiled warmly. "The credit is all yours. You did this with your own hands, heart, and mind. I only helped you see what was possible." She looked around the cafe, feeling a sense of accomplishment that she had never experienced before. This was not just a business. It was a testament to resilience, patience, and kindness. Every challenge she had faced, every long hour, every moment of doubt had led her to this moment. And now she had a foundation to build upon, not just for herself, but for her sibling and the community she cared about. As the lights dimmed and the last customers left, she reflected on how far she had come. From a $1 tip that could have broken her spirit to this moment of triumph, she realized that life's challenges were not meant to defeat her, they were meant to shape her. And she had been shaped not just by hardship, but by the way she chose to respond to it, with patience, kindness, and unwavering determination. The billionaire watched her quietly, proud of the woman she had become. Her journey was far from over, but he knew that she had the strength, heart, and wisdom to face whatever came next. She had transformed her life, not because of luck, wealth, or handouts, but because she stayed true to herself and embraced the opportunities that came with courage and integrity. And in that quiet, cozy cafe, the first step of her new life had begun. The cafe had become more than just a place to serve food and drinks. It was a space where people felt welcome, where kindness and warmth were tangible in every interaction. The waitress, now an owner and leader, walked among her customers with calm confidence, greeting familiar faces and meeting new ones with the same patience and care she had always shown. She had grown in ways she had never imagined. Her confidence was no longer quiet hesitation. It was steady and assured. Her dreams, once distant and fragile, had taken shape, brick by brick, through her dedication and the guidance she had received. Yet she remained humble, never forgetting the long nights of struggle, the responsibility of caring for her sibling, and the lessons she had learned about kindness and perseverance. The billionaire continued to be a quiet presence in her life, offering advice when asked and observing her progress with satisfaction. He never sought attention or acknowledgement. For him, the true reward was seeing her flourish on her own, making decisions, solving problems, and creating a life that reflected her values and character. One afternoon, as she arranged chairs and cleaned tables before the lunch rush, she noticed a familiar figure entering the cafe. He smiled at her warmly and took a seat in a quiet corner, just as he had in the beginning. She felt a rush of memories, the journey they had shared from that $1 tip to the reality of this thriving cafe. After the initial greetings and small talk, he spoke seriously. "You've done something remarkable," he said. "Not just building a business, but creating a space that reflects who you are. People come here because of you, not just because of what you serve." She felt a mix of pride and humility. "I couldn't have done it alone," she said softly. "I had guidance, support, and someone who believed in me when I didn't fully believe in myself." He nodded, understanding the sentiment. Guidance can point the way, but it's effort, heart, and consistency that make change real. You have shown all of that in abundance. As the conversation continued, he asked about her plans for the future. She spoke of expanding the cafe, mentoring others who were struggling, and creating opportunities for people who, like her, had faced hardships but carried strong hearts. She wanted to give back, to build a ripple effect of kindness and opportunity that would touch more lives than her own. He listened, impressed by her clarity and vision. "You've taken what life gave you, and you've turned it into something greater than yourself. "That is rare," he said. "Most people focus only on surviving, but you have learned to thrive and help others thrive too." The cafe continued to grow. Word spread about the warmth, care, and community that existed there. Regular customers became like family, and the staff she hired shared her values of integrity and kindness. She trained them not just in tasks and service, but in empathy, patience, and human connection. The cafe became a living example of what she believed in. That a business could be successful and meaningful at the same time. She often reflected on the journey from that one night when she received a $1 tip. She realized that it had been a turning point, not because of the money itself, but because of the way she had responded. Her calm, composed, and kind reaction had caught the attention of someone who could open doors. But it was her character that had carried her through the challenges that followed Dot in the evenings. When the cafe quieted and she locked the doors, she sometimes sat at a corner table with her journal. She wrote about her experiences, her challenges, her victories, and her dreams. She wrote about the lessons she had learned and how she wanted to pass them on to others. She documented not just success, but the values and principles that had guided her. She wanted to ensure that what she built was lasting, grounded in character, not fleeting trends. Her sibling often joined her, now old enough to understand some of the responsibilities and the effort it took to make the cafe run smoothly. She taught them small lessons about discipline, kindness, and vision. She wanted them to grow with the same values, knowing that a strong heart and mind could overcome any obstacle. The billionaire continued to provide guidance. But now it was more like a partnership of ideas and perspectives rather than direct mentorship. He asked her opinions on various matters, sought her insights, and shared experiences from his own life. He was impressed by how much she had grown, how decisively she made choices, and how her kindness had remained intact despite the pressures of running a business. One day, she faced a significant challenge. A supplier failed to deliver critical items, threatening to disrupt her operations. She could have panicked, but she remembered the lessons she had learned: patience, problem-solving, and calm under pressure. She quickly assessed alternatives, negotiated with backup suppliers, and ensured that the customers felt no disruption. The situation was resolved efficiently, and her staff witnessed her composed leadership. They learned not just about managing a crisis, but about how character and calmness could guide practical solutions. Her reputation grew not just as a business owner, but as a leader who inspired respect and loyalty. People admired her not because she had wealth or power, but because she represented integrity, resilience, and compassion. Her story began to spread, attracting attention from the community, local media, and aspiring entrepreneurs. She became a symbol of what could be achieved with hard work, moral courage, and a kind heart. She remained grounded. She never forgot the moments of struggle, the long hours at the restaurant, or the challenges of her past life. Those experiences had shaped her, and she used them to connect with others who were still fighting their own battles. Her empathy and patience were not learned from books. They were forged in the fires of real-life experience. The cafe became a hub for community events, workshops, and small gatherings. She invited local artists, students, and struggling entrepreneurs to share ideas, learn, and grow. The space became more than a business. It became a platform for opportunity and inspiration. Every effort reflected the core values she had maintained throughout her life: kindness, resilience, and vision. One evening, after a long day, she looked around the cafe, watching the people she had helped and the smiles she had inspired. She felt a profound sense of fulfillment. The journey from the $1 tip to this moment was a testament to patience, perseverance, and character. She realized that life had given her challenges not to break her, but to prepare her for greater things. The billionaire, observing quietly from his usual corner, spoke softly. "You've done more than I could have imagined," he said. "You've taken opportunity, guidance, and your own strength to create something truly remarkable. You've changed your life and the lives of others." She smiled, a calm, confident smile. "I could not have done it without the lessons I've learned along the way. Every challenge, every act of kindness, every moment of patience brought me here. And I want to continue sharing that, helping others find their path." He nodded, understanding that her journey was far from over. She would face new challenges, new opportunities, and new responsibilities. But she had already demonstrated the qualities that mattered most: integrity, compassion, perseverance, and vision. She had built not just a business, but a life grounded in what truly mattered. The Waitress had transformed her life, not through luck or chance, but through the choices she made in small, ordinary moments. Her response to a $1 tip had been the catalyst, but it was her character, her resilience, and her kindness that carried her to success. She had learned that real power came from staying true to oneself, even in the face of hardship. And so, in the quiet, warm light of her thriving cafe, she continued her journey. She led with heart, inspired with example, and built a life that reflected her values. Her story became a testament to the transformative power of patience, integrity, and courage. From a single act of grace to a life of opportunity and impact, she had shown that even the smallest choices could change everything. And she knew, with unwavering certainty, that this was just the beginning of a life lived fully, kindly, and with purpose.